Brazil has the biggest Japanese descendant population outside of Japan, and yet we barely even romanticize Japan, while America glorifies the fuck out of it. Why is that? Well, it starts with the business of things. If Japanese American history was a book, when the most memorable chapters are not about the tragedies, they are about how Onitsuka Tigers took over America through a distribution deal with what would become Nike, or how the Japanese took on jeans manufacturing and went on to become one of the best at it, or how Hasbro bought some Japanese toys and turned that into the Transformers. It's a story of how the post-World War II economic and industrial recovery of Japan was geared towards building electronics, cars, fashion, and entertainment largely to a Western consumer base, and America, being the biggest and the wealthiest consumer-based economy in the world, became the first and the major consumer of Japan as a cultural product. So it's no surprise Americans got obsessed with this product, in the same vein that one can get obsessed with door dashing. Even sushi came to dominate through business. It didn't really take over America just because it was so damn delicious. People were begging for it. The rise of sushi more or less coincided with a period of time when America produced as many restaurants as they did babies. So the supply came around the same time that American dining culture was born. While the quintessential Japanese dish in Brazil isn't sushi, it's pastel. This is a Chinese-inspired dish made by Japanese people and sold in community farmers market. The city of São Paulo alone has around 900 of them. And it was here where the ethnically Japanese built up the Liberdade neighborhood and turned it into a hub of Eastern culture. The Japanese started to come to Brazil en masse in the late 1800s, where they mostly worked on farms and with trade. São Paulo is the economic, financial, industrial, and trade hub of the entire country. That's where they're mostly located. So we have more descendants of Japanese born here for sure, but America has more Japanese born people who speak the language and are more connected to the country and the culture. So the cultural impact of Japanese migration is relegated to São Paulo only, while in America the Japanese are more spread around. As a result, you have multiple cases of Japanese descendants raising up to the House of Representatives and even the Senate in America. Not to mention, America has so many Asian people of so many different backgrounds that they form larger communities that insist on preserving their own unique identity. While that does happen in Brazil too, we got so much fewer of them, it's easier to just lump them all into the Asian category. Thus, you have Japanese people selling a Chinese-inspired dish to Brazilian people who go their whole lives thinking this is a 100% Brazilian dish. When you add that to a much smaller and less wealthy consumer base, the result is a population that doesn't consume Japan as a product as much as America does.
Because this is Japanese 101 and us Japanese people don't shave our pubes!
The same way sushi got popular at the same time we started cooking fast food, the glorification of Japanese culture took off around the same time we started to realize the West was cooked. And the funny thing is, both liberals and conservatives can sympathize with this. It was in the last 30 to 40 years that Japan rose as the cultural product we know today. Starting in the 90s and overseeing the birth of the internet and social media, it was also in the last 40 to 30 years that most people embraced the perspective that the West is falling. And it doesn't matter how you see it. You could have been horrified at the prospects of gay people marrying, a black man becoming president, the 2008 financial crisis, or the rise of political correctness and cancel culture. Or it could be the war on terror, the imperialist horrors of neocolonialism, the housing crisis, and the rise of technocracy that keeps you awake at night. If you're disillusioned with the West for whatever reason, glorifying Japan is a very comfortable escape from reality. I realize it is not 2005 anymore, so claiming Japan is extremely conservative is no longer a big gotcha. We're all hyper aware of that. But back when Japanese culture was rising in influence, back when I was Yu-Gi-Oh! Dueling with my cousins, we were not. We have this idea of Japan as a fantasy land, and of the Japanese as an exotic, otherworldly people that can do absolutely no harm. So we gush over the fact this culture values honor and taking your shoes off when entering a home, and we gloss over the fact that this is the exact same culture where men sexually assaulted so many women in the Tokyo subway that they decided to make women's only trains in the early 2000s to stop that instead of, combating the actual issue. We venerate Japan for its clean streets, for how organized they are with everything. We admire how rigid their academic culture is, and we ignore the fact that the strict cultural and societal norms that keep the streets clean are the same norms that lead them to paint their sidewalks with blood and brain matter when a Japanese person jumps to their death once every 26 minutes. Then on the other hand, the strict cultural and societal norms, the order, the low crime rate, the fact that they're culturally and ethnically homogeneous, all of those things are attributes conservatives would love their countries or their local communities to maintain. For a lot of people, Japan is a traditionalist fantasy, a window into what Europe used to be. Everything Westerners want the West to be. If you're a liberal, you want it to be efficient, highly academic, organized, and technologically advanced. And if you are a conservative, you want it to be homogeneous with little to no immigration, traditional, and orderly. To be a straight white man with a trad wife living in the mountains of Hokkaido. To be a gender-fluid femboy buying apples from a vending machine in Tokyo. Japan is an anti-Western fantasy for everyone. Now, since the United States is the place where George Washington personally invented capitalism in '76, and since Obama personally declared war on capitalism, since the economic heels of the Western world rest on the imperialist prowess of the United States, it is no surprise some of the biggest haters of America and of the Western world are Americans themselves. America dominates the market for people trying to escape the horrors of reality, and it has sold Japan to itself as an alternative reality, where on one hand, the streets are safe and the people are respectful, and on the other hand, the schools don't turn your kids transgender and you're less likely to see black people walking around. While Brazil is a country where even the conservative racists are mixed race and proud of it. We don't have the same cultural buying power or the same cultural demand for a cultural product as America does, and our escapism needs are sufficiently met by one single thing: soccer. That is why, despite us having more Japanese descendants than anyone else on Earth outside of Japan, we grew to barely even romanticize the country.
A loaf of bread, a container of milk, and a stick of butter. A loaf of milk, a container of bread, and a Joe Dirt DVD. A Joe Dirt DVD, Scarlett Johansson, and Treasure from a Fish Tank.